The market was loud, filled with shouts, smoke, and the smell of strange food. On this alien world, humans were not free. They were sold like objects, displayed like animals, and judged like tools. Among the cages and the chains stood a young woman named Ilara. Her wrists were bound, her dress was torn, and her eyes were empty. She had been sold before, passed from one owner to another, but today felt different. Today, she felt she might be forgotten forever. Buyers walked past her cage without even stopping. Some laughed, some shook their heads. "She is too thin." One alien muttered, "Not strong enough to work." Another said, "A waste of credits." A third spat on the ground. Elar lowered her head. Worthless. That was the word that followed her everywhere. She had been told she had no value, no beauty, no strength. Her life was a price tag that no one wanted to pay. The auctioneer tried to sell her anyway. Look at her, a human girl. Loyal, obedient, and quiet. His voice cracked, but no one raised a hand. Minutes passed. Other humans were sold, dragged away, screaming or crying. Ilara remained. She was the one no one wanted. Inside her chest, her heart whispered a truth she hated to admit. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am worth nothing. But just as the auctioneer was about to give up, the crowd shifted. A man stepped forward. He was tall, wearing a dark cloak with the hood pulled low over his face. His movements were calm, almost too calm for a place full of chaos. He stopped in front of Ilara's cage and stood there silently, as if studying her. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. "You, sir? Interested in this one?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his cloak and pulled out a small pouch of glowing coins. He tossed them on the table. The sound of the coins was heavy. Final, the crowd gasped. No one had offered even a single coin for Ilara. But this man gave enough to buy 3 slaves. The auctioneer grinned, greedy eyes shining. Sold. Sold for more than she was worth. Chains rattled as Ilara was dragged from the cage and pushed toward the stranger. She stumbled, almost falling, but the man caught her arm gently. His grip was strong but not cruel. For the first time in years, no one pulled her, no one struck her. Ilara looked up at him, trying to see his face under the hood. She wanted to ask why, but no words came. The market noise faded behind them as he led her away. The crowd whispered, confused. Why would anyone pay so much for her? As they walked through the dusty streets, Ilara's mind raced. She tried to guess his reason. Did he buy her for work? Did he want to sell her again? Or was he hiding something darker? Finally, she found her voice. "Why? Why me?" she whispered. The man did not answer. He only looked at her for a moment, and in that look she saw something she had not seen in years. It was not pity. It was not desire. It was something else, something she could not name. Night began to fall. The man led her out of the city, far from the lights and noise. They walked into the desert, where 2 moons hung in the sky and the wind carried the sound of distant creatures. Ilara's fear grew. She wanted to run, but where could she go? This planet was not her home. She had no one, nothing. At last, they stopped near the ruins of an old stone tower. The man made a small fire, its light flickering across the broken walls. A cake gave her food, simple bread and water. She hesitated, then ate her hunger stronger than her doubt. Still, questions burned in her mind. Who was he? Why had he spent so much to buy someone worthless? The fire cracked. The night was cold. Ilara pulled her knees to her chest and tried to stay awake. But her eyes grew heavy. Just before sleep took her, she thought she heard him whisper something. His voice was low, almost too soft to hear. "You are not worthless." Her eyes opened, but he was already silent, staring into the flames. A shiver ran through her. For years, she had been told the opposite. For years, she had believed it. But now, one stranger had said the words she had longed to hear. Ilara did not know whether to trust him. She did not know if he was her savior or her doom. But one thing was certain, her life had changed tonight. And as the desert wind howled, she realized something else. This man had secrets. Secrets far greater than she could imagine. The question was not why he bought her. The question was, what would he do with her now? The fire was still glowing when Ilara woke. The desert night was quiet. Only the soft crackle of burning wood filled the air. For a moment, she thought the man had left her alone. Fear rushed through her chest. But then she saw him. He was standing at the edge of the ruins, facing the open desert. His cloak moved with the cold wind, and his hood still hid his face. He stood so still that he almost looked like a statue. Ilara pushed herself up slowly, her chains clinking. She studied him, wondering again why he had chosen her. Why pay so much for someone everyone had called worthless? She wanted to ask again, but something about his silence held her back. It was not the silence of cruelty. It was the silence of someone carrying a heavy secret. Hours passed, and he did not speak. He gave her food again, but no words. He gave her water, but no answer. Ilara began to think he might never speak at all. Yet his eyes, those were not silent. Whenever his gaze met hers, she felt a strange weight, as if he could see through her skin and into her very soul. The second night came. They were far from the city now, walking through open plains where the sky stretched forever. Strange blue lights glowed in the distance, rising from plants that looked alive as if breathing. Ilara could not stop herself. She whispered, "Are you going to sell me again?" The man turned his head slightly, but did not answer. Her voice trembled as she continued, "Are you going to hurt me?" This time, he stopped walking. He turned fully toward her, and for the first time, she saw his face. The hood slipped back just enough for the firelight to touch his features. He was human, or at least he looked human. His eyes were sharp, glowing faintly with a strange silver light. His jaw was strong, but there was sadness written in the lines of his face. "No," he said at last. His voice was deep, calm, but broken by sorrow. "I will not hurt you." It was the first word he had spoken to her, and they struck her harder than any chain ever had. That night, as she tried to sleep near the fire, she heard something else. A noise, not from him, but from the darkness beyond. It was a low growl, deep and guttural, echoing across the rocks. Ilara's heart leaped. She sat up, eyes wide, searching the shadows. Something was moving out there. Something big. The stranger was already on his feet, cloak falling back as he reached for the object strapped to his side. It was not a sword, not a gun. Something in between, glowing faintly like the veins of a crystal. "Stay here," he said. And his voice carried a command that made her freeze. From the shadows, a beast appeared. Its body was massive, covered in thick scales that shimmered under the moonlight. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of jagged teeth, dripping with saliva. Ilara gasped. She had seen alien creatures before, but nothing like this. This thing was built to kill. The man did not hesitate. In one swift movement, he activated the weapon. A blade of blue energy stretched out. Humming with power, the beast roared and charged. Ilara's scream caught in her throat. But the stranger moved faster than her eyes could follow. He sidestepped, his cloak swirling and slashed. The weapon cut through scale and bone-like paper. The beast shrieked, its voice shaking the ground, then collapsed in a cloud of dust and blood. Silence fell again. The man stood over the fallen creature, breathing slowly. He turned off the weapon, the glow fading into nothing. Alara could not move. She had never seen such power. He was not just strong. He was something else, something more. When he walked back to her, his eyes carried that same sorrow. He said nothing, only sat by the fire again, as if nothing had happened. But Alara's thoughts were loud. Who is he? What kind of man fights a monster like that and walks away as if it were nothing? She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. Fear and curiosity battled inside her chest. As the fire burned low, she whispered to herself, "Why did he choose me?" The man did not answer, but his hand tightened slightly on the strange weapon, as if her question touched something deep. At last, his voice came. Softer than the desert wind, because you remind me of someone I lost. Alara froze. She wanted to ask more, but his face turned away. He had closed himself again, silent as stone. The night grew darker. The cold grew sharper, and Alara realized something terrifying. The man who had saved her was not only dangerous to others, he was dangerous to her as well. Because, with every passing moment, her heart wanted to trust him. But could she? The desert never truly slept. Even when the moons hung low, strange cries echoed in the distance, and the ground seemed to hum with life. Alara sat close to the fire, staring at the man across from her. He had killed a monster with ease. He had spoken only a few words. And yet, she felt there was more to him, something he was hiding in the dark. His weapon lay beside him, faintly glowing, like it was alive. Alara could not take her eyes off it. No human she had ever known carried something like that. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "What are you?" The man lifted his gaze slowly, as if weighing her question. His silver eyes caught the firelight. "A survivor," he said. Nothing more. Alara clenched her fists. "That is not an answer. No ordinary man moves like you. No ordinary man fights like you. And that weapon, it is not from this world." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a quiet sigh, he picked up the weapon and held it out, letting the firelight reveal its shape. "It is called a Klyros blade," he said softly. "A relic from a war that should never have happened." Alara leaned forward, curiosity mixing with fear. "A war? What war?" His eyes darkened. "The war that destroyed everything I loved." The flames crackled between them. For the first time, she saw not only his strength, but his pain. His voice carried a weight heavier than chains. He stood and moved toward the shadows of the ruins, away from her. "I fought in battles across stars. I saw planets burn. And when it was over, I had nothing left." Alara's breath caught. She had heard stories of great wars, long ago wars fought with weapons that shattered worlds. But those were stories told like myths. Yet the man's voice was too real, too broken, to be a lie. "Then why me?" she asked again, her voice sharper. "Why buy me when you could walk alone?" "What do you see in me?" The man turned slowly. His hood fell back fully now, and she saw the scars across his face. Not just scars of skin, but scars that came from years of survival. Years of loss. "You remind me," he said, "of the one I failed to protect." Alara's chest tightened. He had lost someone, a woman, perhaps, a family? She wanted to ask. But the sorrow in his eyes warned her not to. The night deepened, and sleep came slowly. Alara lay near the dying fire, but her mind stayed awake, filled with questions. Who was he truly? What had he seen in the stars? Then, suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Not a beast, this time. Not claws or growls. It was a voice. El-Ra. She froze, eyes wide. The whisper came from the darkness beyond the ruins. El-Ra. Come to me. Her heart pounded. It was soft, sweet, almost familiar, like someone she had once known. She sat up, staring into the blackness. Ilara, without thinking, she stepped forward. Her feet moved as if pulled by invisible strings. The voice was gentle, promising safety, warmth, belonging. But before she could take another step, a hand gripped her arm. The stranger, his voice cut through the night, sharp and commanding. "Do not listen." Ilara trembled. "But it sounded like it is not real," he said firmly. "It is the dark." Confusion and fear flooded her. The dark, he pulled her back toward the fire. His grip strong but protective. His eyes swept the ruins, searching the shadows. "There are things here," he whispered. "Things that feed on the weak. They reach into your mind, shape your fears, your memories. If you follow, you will never return." Ilara's blood turned cold. She realized the desert was more dangerous than she had ever imagined, and the man he knew these dangers. He had faced them before. As dawn approached, she finally slept, but uneasily. When she woke, he was still watching the horizon, his weapon. Across his knees, she studied him carefully. He was not just a man with scars. He was not just a fighter with strange weapons. He was someone who had walked through shadows and survived. Someone who carried secrets too heavy for words. Ilara whispered to herself, "He is not like anyone else." And though fear still lived, in her heart, something new began to grow alongside it. Curiosity, because now she knew. His silence was not emptiness. His silence was protection. But protection from what? The sun rose over the desert, painting the sand in shades of gold and red. Ilara walked behind the stranger, her chains lighter now, though still heavy on her wrists. The memory of the whispers from last night clung to her like a shadow. She studied the man's back as he led the way. His cloak fluttered in the wind. His steps steady, unshaken. He had fought monsters. He had silenced voices from the dark. He had revealed scars from a war she barely understood, but the more she saw, the more she wanted to know. At last, she spoke. What was her name? The man stopped. For a moment, silence stretched between them. His shoulders stiffened, and his head tilted slightly, as if he had not expected the question. "Whose name?" he asked. "The one you lost," Ilara said quietly. "The one I remind you of." The wind blew sand across the ground. For a heartbeat, she thought he would ignore her. But then, in a voice so soft it almost vanished with the wind, he answered, "Leora." Ilara repeated the name in her head. Leora, a name that carried weight, sorrow, and love. She was... He hesitated, then turned his face away. She was my reason to keep fighting, and when she was gone, I had nothing. His words struck Ilara like a blade. She had never been anyone's reason. She had never been more than a price on a cage. But this Leora, she must have been everything to him. They walked until the desert gave way to broken stone cliffs. Strange ruins rose from the sand, towers half buried, carved with symbols that glowed faintly in the sunlight. Ilara slowed, staring in awe. What is this place? The man's eyes swept the ruins. A battlefield, he said. Long ago. This was where armies clashed, where fire rained from the sky and cities turned to ash. Ilara shivered. The air itself felt heavy, as if it still carried echoes of screams. He guided her into the ruins, moving like someone who knew the path well. The walls were marked with burned scars, and broken machines lay scattered, their wires like dead veins. As they passed through, Ilara noticed his expression change. He was not just guiding her, he was remembering. "This is where I last saw her," he whispered. His voice cracked, just slightly. Ilara's breath caught. She looked at the scars on the stone, the broken towers, and tried to imagine it. A war. Flames, A woman named Leora, standing beside him. And then Loss, did she die here? Ilara asked carefully. His jaw tightened. I do not know. One moment she was beside me. The next, she was gone. Smoke, fire. The ground opened, and I could not reach her. His silver eyes darkened with pain. I searched. For years, I searched. But I found nothing. Ilara's chest ached. She had known pain, yes. But his grief was deeper, sharper, like a wound that never healed. For a long time, they walked in. Silence. The ruins stretched like a graveyard, each stone a memory. At night, they camped beneath a shattered tower. The wind howled through its broken windows like voices of the dead. Ilara sat close to the fire, hugging her knees. She wanted to say something, anything, to ease the sorrow that hung between them. But what could she say to a man who had lost everything? Finally, she whispered, I am not her. I am not Leora. His gaze lifted, meeting hers. For a moment, she thought she had angered him. But instead, he nodded slowly. I know, he said. And yet, when I saw you in that cage, I saw the same fire in your eyes that she once had. The world called you worthless, but I know better. Ilara's throat tightened. For the first time, someone had spoken of her as if she mattered. She turned away. Blinking back tears, she had not allowed herself to cry. Later that night, when the fire burned low, she woke to strange lights flickering in the ruins. At first, she thought it was a dream. But no, the stones themselves were glowing, symbols shining brighter than before. She shook the man awake. Look. His eyes snapped open, and for the first time, she saw fear in his face. This should not be happening. He muttered. The ground trembled. The symbols pulsed like a heartbeat. From the cracks in the stone, a strange mist began to rise, carrying whispers that crawled into their ears. Ilara, the voices hissed. Leora, they moaned. Her blood ran cold. The ruins were not dead. They were alive with something that remembered names, faces, and pain. The man grabbed his blade, the blue light sparking to life. His voice was low but urgent. We are not alone. The ruins trembled under their feet. Blue light pulsed through the broken stones like veins of fire, and the whispers grew louder. Ilara, Leora, stay. Ilara covered her ears, but the voices seeped into her mind. They pulled at her memories, twisting them, making her see things that weren't real. For a heartbeat, she saw her mother's face, smiling, reaching out for her. For another, she saw herself standing proud, free, loved. She wanted to step forward, to follow the voices into the glowing mist, but the stranger's hand gripped her arm, strong and steady. His blade hummed with light. Do not trust what you hear, he warned. These ruins are filled with lies. Ilara's heart raced. Lies or not, the voices felt real, too real. They moved quickly through the ruins, the glowing symbols chasing them like eyes. Finally, they reached the edge of the cliffs, where jagged rocks fell into a deep canyon. The night sky stretched above, endless and cold. But before they could climb down, shapes appeared. From the shadows, armed raiders stepped. Outmen and creatures dressed in scavenged armor, their eyes hungry. Well, well, their leader sneered. He was tall, with a scar splitting his lip and a weapon strapped across his back. Look who we have here, the ghost soldier, and his new prize. Ilara froze. Ghost soldier. Her eyes darted to the man beside her. Was that who he was? The raiders circled them, laughing. We've heard the stories. The soldier who should have died. The one who walks the wastelands. But what's this? Traveling with a slave girl. The leader smirked at Ilara. Did he tell you what he really is, or did he hide that too? Her chest tightened. The man's silence had always been heavy, but now it felt dangerous. Had he lied to her? The stranger raised his weapon. Its blue glow cutting through the night. "Leave us," the raiders laughed. "Or what? You'll cut us down like you cut your own people." Ilara's breath caught. Cut his own people. Her gaze snapped to him, searching his face for truth. But his expression was carved from stone. The leader saw her doubt and leaned closer. "You don't know, do you? He wasn't just in the war, he caused it. Whole cities burned because of him. He's no savior. Girl, he's a curse." Ilara's mind spun. Was it true? Was the man who bought her, who saved her, the very reason so many had died? Her hands trembled. The raider's words were poison, but her heart ached with fear. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Did you?" The man didn't look at her. His blade stayed steady. His eyes locked on the raiders. "Not now," he said coldly. But his refusal to answer was an answer in itself. The raiders attacked. Blades flashed, weapons fired, and chaos filled the ruins. The stranger fought like lightning, his blade cutting through armor and bone. Ilara stumbled back, chains dragging, heart pounding. One raider lunged for her. She screamed, ducking, but the man struck him down before he could touch her. His movements were precise, merciless like death itself. The raiders fell one by one until only their leader remained. He backed away, blood dripping from his arm, but his voice was sharp with hatred. "You can kill me," he spat, "but the girl knows now. She knows what you are." He vanished into the shadows before the blade could strike. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of Ilara's quick breaths. The man turned to her, but she stepped back. "You didn't deny it," she said, her voice shaking. "You didn't deny what they said." His silver eyes met hers, calm but filled with sorrow. Some truths are too heavy to speak in the middle of battle. Her chest ached. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. That night they camped on the canyon's edge. The fire burned low, but Ilara could not sleep. She kept her distance, staring at him across the flames. Finally, she whispered, "If you were part of the war, if you destroyed lives, why save mine?" His gaze lifted to her. For a long time, he said nothing. Then his voice came low and steady. "Because everyone deserves one chance, even me." The words hung in the air like a fragile thread. Ilara's eyes filled with tears she did not want to shed. She turned away, pulling her chains close, torn between fear and something she could not name. Trust, could she give it to him? Or would it betray her in the end? The canyon stretched wide below them, carved deep into the earth like a scar. Ilara sat at its edge, hugging her knees, while the stranger sharpened his blade in silence. The whispers of the raiders haunted her mind. He caused the war. He burned cities. He is no savior. She looked at him, at his scarred face, at his silver eyes that reflected the firelight. Could such eyes belong to a destroyer? Or had they seen too much pain to ever lie? Finally, she spoke. Her voice was small, but sharp. "Tell me the truth. Were they right? Did you kill your own people?" The sound of metal against stone stopped. His hand froze. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to her. "Yes," he said at last. "Ilara's breath caught. She expected denial. She expected excuses. But his voice carried only the weight of sorrow. "I fought for peace," he continued, his tone heavy. "But peace is never clean. I followed orders that should not have been followed. I raised a blade against those I should have protected. And when it was over, there was nothing left but ashes." His words cut deeper than any weapon. Ilara wanted to scream, to run, but she couldn't. Her body stayed frozen, chained not by iron, but by confusion. He looked away, his voice softer. You should fear me. Everyone else does. That is why no one follows me. No one stays. Only ghosts remain. Ilara swallowed hard. The fire flickered between them. Her mind told her to run, but her heart whispered something different. You saved me, she said quietly. He turned back, eyes narrowing slightly. You could have left me in that cage, she continued. You could have walked past, like all the others, but you didn't. His jaw tightened. Because I saw worth in you. The words struck her like a spark. For years, she had been called worthless, sold for nothing. And now, the man who confessed to destroying worlds was telling her she had value. Her chest ached with a mix of anger, fear, and something dangerously close to hope. The next day, they climbed down into the canyon. Shadows clung to its walls, and strange crystals jutted from the rock, glowing faintly. Ilara's chains clinked as she moved, but the man carried her weight whenever she stumbled at the canyon's heart. They found a river of light. It flowed not with water, but with energy, bright and humming. The air buzzed like thunder waiting to strike. Ilara stared in awe. What is this? The wound of the world, he answered. The last weapon of the war. It burns still, though centuries have passed. The light reflected in his silver eyes, making them almost otherworldly. Ilara stepped closer, but he caught her arm sharply. Do not touch it. This power destroys all who seek it. She pulled her arm free, anger rising. Is that what happened to you? Did this power make you what you are? He looked at her long and hard. No, my choices did. His honesty shook her. No excuses, no lies, just truth raw. Painful truth. That night, under the canyon's shadow, they camped again. Ilara could not sleep. Her mind turned over his words. A killer, a destroyer, yet also the only one who had ever said she had worth. She turned to him in the dark. Why me? She whispered again. Why see worth in me when the whole world says I have none? For the first time, his voice softened, warm like the glow of the dying fire. Because worth is not what others give you. It is what you already carry. I saw it in your eyes, the strength to stand even when the world calls you nothing. That is why I chose you. Tears stung her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever believed she had anything inside worth saving. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the canyons. Heavy, deep, coming closer. The man rose at once, blade in hand. They followed us, he muttered. Ilara's heart pounded. The raiders. They had returned more than before, their torches glowing in the dark. The stranger looked at her, his eyes fierce. This time, they do not want me. They want you. They heard the ruins whisper your name. Ilara's blood ran cold. The raiders shouted, their voices echoing across the canyon walls. Give us the girl. The stranger stood tall, weapon blazing blue. His voice was steady, unshaken, double quotes, no. She is not yours. Ilara trembled, fear flooding her veins. But somewhere, deep inside, a spark of courage flickered. Maybe he was a destroyer. Maybe he had blood on his hands. But he had chosen her not as a slave. Not as nothing, but as someone worth fighting for. And for the first time, Ilara wondered if she, too, could fight. The canyon shook with the sound of drums. Torches lit the night, their flames dancing against the walls of stone. Raiders gathered on the cliffs above, their weapons glinting, their voices echoing like thunder. Give us the girl. They roared. She is ours. Ilara's blood ran cold. All her life, she had been treated this way, an object to be owned, a thing to be sold. Sold for nothing, deemed worthless. But now, for the first time, someone had stood between her and the world. The stranger's blade hummed bright blue, casting light across the canyon floor. He faced the raiders without fear. "She belongs to no one," his voice thundered back. "Not to you, not to me, not to anyone." Elara's heart pounded. Words hit her harder than the drums. Not to anyone. Could it be true? Could she really belong only to herself? The raiders descended like a storm, climbing down ropes, sliding over rocks, their shouts filling the air. The leader, scar-faced and cruel, raised his weapon high. "Ghost soldier," he shouted. "Your blood is cursed, and hers is worthless. Tonight, both will end." The stranger moved like lightning, his blade cutting through the first wave of raiders. Sparks flew, steel clashed, and cries filled the canyon. He was strong to strong, but there were too many. Elara stumbled back, chains heavy on her wrists. Fear screamed inside her head. She was useless, helpless, just as they had always told her. But then she remembered his words. "Worth is not what others give you. It is what you already carry." She looked at her chains, then at the sharp stones at her feet. With trembling hands, she smashed the metal against the rock. Once, twice, again. Sparks flew. Pain tore her skin, but she didn't stop. Finally, the chain cracked. One wrist came free. She gasped, breathless, but fire blazed in her chest. The leader reached her first. His sneer twisted into a cruel smile. "Come quietly, girl. You'll fetch a better price than before." Elara's fear turned to fury. "I am not for sale." With her free hand, she swung the broken chain like a whip. The metal struck his face, splitting his scar open wider. He screamed, stumbling back. The stranger turned, eyes wide, just long enough to see her standing tall, no longer cowering. For the first time, she was not waiting to be saved. She was fighting. Pride flickered in his silver eyes. The battle raged. Together, they fought him with his glowing blade. Her with chains and stones, striking raiders down with every ounce of strength she had. The canyon rang with shouts and screams. Elira's arms ached, her breath burned, but she did not stop. Every strike was a refusal to be sold, a refusal to be worthless. Finally, only the leader remained, blood streaking his face. He glared at her with hatred. "You think you are free. You are nothing without him." Elara's chest rose and fell, sweat and dust clinging to her skin. She lifted the chain high, her voice steady. "No, I was nothing because of you, because of all of you, but not anymore." With one final strike, she swung the chain. The leader fell, his weapon clattering to the ground. Silence followed. The drums stopped. The remaining raiders fled into the night, leaving only shadows behind. The stranger lowered his blade, its blue glow fading. For the first time, he looked at peace. His eyes met hers, filled with something rare hope. "You chose," he said. Softly, Elara dropped the chain, her chest still heaving. "I chose myself." Her words echoed through the canyon louder than any drum. He stepped closer, offering his hand. Not as a master, not as an owner, but as an equal. Elara hesitated, then placed her hand in his. For the first time, the weight of chains was gone. At dawn, they climbed out of the canyon together. The sun rose over the desert, washing the world in light. Elara looked back once, at the place where she had fought, where she had chosen. She was no longer the girl sold for nothing, no longer the slave deemed worthless. She was more, the stranger. Walked beside her, silent but steady. She did not know where their path would lead, perhaps to danger, perhaps to freedom, but it no longer mattered, because she had found her worth, and no one could take it away again.